Welcome to Biz Jet TV. My name is Fabrizio Poli, and today we've got a special treat for you. We're going to be talking to Loral Langemeier over in Nevada. Loral is an entrepreneur, also a best-selling author. She's written this incredible book called The Millionaire Maker and lots of other books as well. And what Loral does, she does a number of things. She's invested in oil and gas. She's also invested in real estate. She also is like a shark investor in a number of businesses, and she writes books, she does seminars. The main thing and her main mission is helping people to figure out what their talent is and helping them turn that talent into a business. Once that starts producing money, then take that money and invest it in things like real estate and whatever in order to multiply their wealth and preserve their wealth over time. She's got some very interesting programs. Laurel's work has influenced me in my journey from being an airline pilot to an entrepreneur, and that's why I decided to have her on the show. So the interview is really interesting. It's divided into two parts. This is part one. That you're going to be watching shortly, and very interesting how Loral got into private aircraft usage. She uses, she has her own turboprop, she uses jets, she uses helicopters, and she explains in the interview how she got into this and how she uses it to multiply her business, and hopefully will give you a bit of a few ideas and some inspiration which will help you along your journey to private jet ownership. So let's get straight in now and let's connect with Loral over in Nevada in the United States. Off we go. Okay, Laura, so thank you for being here on the show and for your time. So tell us about the various businesses that you're in. Take us along that journey from where you entered the wealth world, and how that brought you into using private jets, private aircraft.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I started, the back whole story, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, right? And you have my Millionaire Maker book. So that came out in 2006.
Yep. Guys, really good book.
Yeah. And so I became a millionaire in 1999 when I knew that I was going to be a single mom. So I do some interesting reverse planning. So I became a millionaire in real estate and gas and oil, and then started really creating a whole real estate process of how to take and monetize a lot of folks. So raise private capital, got people into real estate. 2006 was offered the Millionaire Maker book. And then I've just owned a lot of companies. So from education companies always, so publisher, author, speaker, done every continent but Antarctica, been all over the world. Used not only private jets, I've used, I've been like twin props. King Air is still my favorite, of all of them, which isn't quite a jet. It's right below a jet, different cost structure, different tax structure. And I've also, we haven't talked about this, but I have used a lot of private helicopters because they get you, very quickly around, high traffic areas where you got to be on one show and another show or another stage. So I've moved around privately pretty regularly, and sometimes even trains. And I always say cars is sometimes the worst. As far as businesses, so I've always maintained real estate and gas and oil, always. This obviously is my primary company, which the under company of it is Live Out Loud. We brand under Integrated Wealth Systems, again, all over the world. We got a lot of work in UK, a lot of work in Australia. My husband's in Canada. Other companies and things I have been into. Right now, I have 4 marijuana licenses here in Nevada, which are awesome. That'll be continued private. And I do a lot of from developments to rehabs. When I do real estate, we own it all, including property management. So we own every part of the cash flow as we can. And I have bought and sold nutraceuticals to restaurants, to hair salons, to you name it. I've been, before Shark Tank and Dragon's Den gave it a name, I just said I was an investor. People are like, well, what do you invest in? Now you can just say I'm a shark. So right now, looking at different travel businesses, looking at some vehicle dealerships. So if I don't consult to them on how to, create the deal structure and private capital, sometimes I'll just jump into the deal. It just depends on the project.
Yeah, it makes sense. So how did you get into private jet usage? What introduced you to using a private aircraft, and how do you use private aircraft to do deals?
Couldn't imagine not having it now. But way back, I wouldn't even have thought of it. I had some clients that were out of the Scottsdale market, out of the Dallas market, LA markets, and they did a lot of private. And I was more consulting on like where you are getting leases and what do they want to do strategy. I was more on the consulting strategy side. And then one day, the end of December 31st, 2006, my daughter was just born. And my father fell in Nebraska. My brothers called and said, you have a very short time to get home to see him for one last time. And you can imagine Lake Tahoe, Nevada, New Year's Eve, you cannot get out. There's no airplanes. There's no airports. You couldn't go all the way to Sacramento. I couldn't even drove to San Francisco. So I called one of those guys that were one of my clients actually out of Scottsdale. And I said, I need to go to Nebraska now. He's like, Loral, it's almost midnight on New Year's Eve. I said, I don't care. So I struck, a huge credit card bill, 29 grand to come pick us up and take us to Nebraska. Beechcraft, very smart, knew these guys well, and said, I stayed in Nebraska. My father passed. So obviously I got into it because my father passed. Is a long story. Yeah. But good, interesting. This is interesting information. You totally get interested in how they did this. Beechcraft sent a free flight home. I said, there's going to be one caveat. We're going to put a sales rep on the plane. I said, whatever. Like good for you. Put a sales guy on the plane. So that plane landed and it never left Nevada. So that's kind of how I got into it. I bought straight up brand new plane, 2007. And I've been flying private since. It is a way, business is to fly investors around in a King Air versus have them all fly in to go pick them up. To just take your staff. I've used it for the muscle of the plane for the most part was because I do events. I'm very, very heavily event driven. This whole coronavirus is now we're doing daily broadcasts. We now call ourselves the cable broadcast company, but we'll still use, private aviation. I don't know how to do business without it. I've been doing it now for almost 14 years.
So now with the coronavirus out there, have you been still using your aircraft? Or have you not been using it?
Well, yeah, and I've sold it to another gentleman. But absolutely. And part of it's just speed. When you get the value of time, and I think most people that transition to private aircraft truly value their time. There's a whole bunch of people who just that's just what they do. But from a business perspective, the value of time is enormous. From sitting in airports, I don't care if you've got TSA, I got Clear, I've got Nexus, I got Global. Like, you can have every clearance in the world to get through an airport, but there is nothing about, from packing to how you do all of it. The time sensitivity of getting around very quickly privately and is enormous. And then I have a team that goes out to every show. So we're also carrying our gear. Yeah. So instead of having to bring all of our sound equipment and our stage equipment and all of our stuff, we just packed it. We pack it, we drop off. We can leave the plane there. They can do other, charters or leases in between to make some more revenue, and then take us back home several days later. So once you get it, you don't really flying commercials. Interesting.
Yeah, and the King Air is a great plane because you can land on grass as well. So there's a lot more airstrips available compared to a jet where you're only limited to paved runways. So that's a great advantage. Of course, the King Air works on the short distances, which is great. But where you are from Nevada getting to LA and Las Vegas and other places, you're pretty close. So King Air does get you to most places in a few hours, which is.
And the benefit of a jet, though, we fly those as well, is depending on the meeting. You can, and the other place that people don't realize is how much work you get done. You're isolated. You can flip out the tables. You can sit in a quad or with a group of 6 fairly easily. Tables down, monitors up, sound. You can get a lot done while you're in there. For a while, I even did plane mentoring. People would pay, and part of the experience was to meet, fly, have the experience, do some work, land, have lunch, get back in the plane, continue to meet. You get a lot done.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, they say that people's productivity increases by 36% on a private jet than when they're actually in the office. Because they're on a jet, they're in that confined, they're focused, they're thinking, oh, we're on a jet, we're on a private jet, we better get some work done. And they're really in work mode. And, and as you drive up to the airplane, you get on the airplane, you're in the air immediately. There's none of this 2-3 hours going through security. Where's my bag gone? And check in and this and check this and take your shoes off. And by the time you get on the airplane, you're so knackered. that you just want to sit there and relax. You don't want to do any work. And if you do any work, you can't really work because you never know who's listening. While on a private jet, it's private. And I think that's really, really important. Now, with this situation, let's talk about some deals that you've actually done. Give us some examples of where you've managed to launch out to different locations or launch out into a deal quickly and do the deal, which you wouldn't have done if you hadn't been using private aircraft.
Well, some of the first was in real estate and gas and oil. So some of the partners, whether their companies leased the jet or what we were flying at that time, but we would do, like in Texas, there was I leased it out to a group to bring investors out to the oil and gas fields. So you land in Dallas and then you take either a smaller or a different plane or helicopter. Because a lot of bigger investors, they've never seen it. And I've always taught off Wall Street assets as an asset class. And I said, nothing teaches you better than actually seeing the asset you're buying. So flying in to see a real estate project, seeing a gas and oil project. When we were looking through Canada for large, institutional investing for the cannabis project, a lot of them would fly down here. We take them to different facilities. So I would say more recently, the funding for cannabis projects came that way. Real estate, gas and oil. What else would I say? Those are probably the primary. A lot of author speakers, a lot of folks in my space don't have planes. A lot of them would reach out to me and either lease or use the plane or like I said, private mentoring was extremely successful for a while, where people would pay just to be in the air, have myself and maybe one or two other experts and all attention on their project. So a lot of ways to get really clear and focused. And like you said, the ease of drive up, jump on, and move is amazing. Now, I know you had mentioned earlier that you meet a lot of other people, and I know folks who have actually jumped on other kinds of shared aircrafts. I've actually never done that. I've actually always, owned or leased privately.
I don't advocate that. My opinion is private jet needs to stay private. What you don't want to do is get on a private aircraft with some strangers. Okay, you want to be able to control that airplane, and control means knowing who's on there. You choose who's on there, whether they're people that work with you or they're guests of yours, or people you can potentially do business with because you sent the aircraft out to take them out to see a real piece of real estate. You're already there on location, and you're sending the plane out 2 or 3 times that day to bring in different groups to see the property. But you're controlling the airplane. You control who's on it, and I think that's really, really important. I don't believe in these schemes where share the jet, buy a seat. No, I don't buy into that. In fact, nearly every one of these projects has failed so far, and those that haven't failed will fail. And if they haven't failed yet, it's because they keep raising money. But you get to a point where the money raise stops, and then the money runs out, and and with airplanes, money can run out very quickly. So as we're seeing now with so many airlines being grounded because of the coronavirus and going bust, it's just terrible what's going on for the airline people. But what do you think is going to happen to the private jet world after the virus is over?
I think already it's skyrocketing. I stay in touch with my team from that whole world. I mean, they're friends. We talk a lot. It's they don't even have enough aircrafts. I mean, they're having to lease other people's to handle the volume of what's coming. And the other thing too, which I think is interesting, is a lot of the major airlines, I know Delta's doing it, I know American's doing it, where they're having a division, call it, of private aircraft. To your point, I would again have a little due diligence. Is it really private? Because really, that's just a big ticket for what's basically going to be a first class seat with a whole bunch of strangers. So I think, again, folks who are looking at it maybe as a step in, it could be a path, but I would just caution and say, having done it very private and all under, like you said, under my control or our team's control, get a real private experience. Like if you're going to, step into private, I would say bypass a large airline saying they're private, or even some of the, like you said, buy yourself a seat or buy a year ticket and use it for so many hours. I mean, that's just an upgraded business class. What I liken it to would be like, Virgin Australia has a very open first class with a bar and, where you really can network. That's kind of what you're buying, is a group of people who can afford it, but they're not really under your command. And to your point, which I'm going to say even more and more, time value and getting work done. And then I'm going to put a big is privacy of what goes on in those times. Like, I don't know, that for the money you're going to spend, get a true private experience.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, we saw a big surge in private jet ownership after 9/11. 2002, NetJets bought 425 aircraft. They came onto the market. They educated the market on private jet travel. I think we're going to see the same now after coronavirus, but this time people are thinking viruses. If my own pilots have been tested, the airplane's been disinfected, the people that are on the airplane are my team, they've been through the tests and they haven't got the virus, so everybody's fine. You know, people are going to look at it. I mean, I've got one person I know here in Manchester in the UK, and they have their own Challenger 300. They only fly private, they never fly commercial, and they don't want anybody touching their airplane because they're just got this thing about germs, and they've had this for like 15 years. So you can imagine this guy now, he must say, oh, that good job I have my own airplane and there are no germs on it, because and he has the pilot clean it all the time and everything and that. So, you know, you're going to see a lot more of this, because people now, the Prime Minister here in England is saying, wash your hands and sing happy birthday twice. And that everybody's very conscious now about washing their hands. And if you touch the handrail in an airport, you could get germs from, you know, and so people are starting to read into these things and kind of be educated. So I think this is going to, you know, transmute over into the private jet thing. And, you know, people are going to be looking into it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that first portion of the interview with Loral Langemeier. So look out for episode 2. It'll be coming shortly. In the meantime, I'd encourage you to subscribe to Biz Jet TV. Also, if you want to find out more about either leasing for 12 months or 6 months, a private jet, you can contact me on my email, fab@orvilleaviation.com. And I encourage you to subscribe to Biz Jet TV. Lots of content already on here and more content coming in the next few weeks. Also, comment below. I would love to hear from you, your suggestions, your ideas, and also what you think of the interview with Loral. She's given us some great insight here on why she uses private aircraft. And I also would like to encourage you to have a look at the video here, 5 reasons to buy a private jet, and this other one about off-market private jet, which is an interesting one too. And that's all from me, from Fabrizio Poli on Biz Jet TV, and I'll see you on the next one.